Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third innings. My name is Maxwell Charlesoff, and alongside me, as always, is my co-host and good friend Prasuk Jain. So, Prasuk, if you had to describe this most recent match of the Sunrisers Hyderabad versus the Kolkata Knight Riders in 3 words, how would you describe it?
Not as close.
Not as close. In parentheses, as you may think. No.
Exactly. You
So
just
on
give me
and
three
so on.
words.
Yes. Well, I would see why you would say that, and our dear listeners will too as soon as I run through the scores for them nice and quick. So, Kolkata batted first. They scored 187 for 6. Nitish Rana doing a lot of the damage at the top, scoring 80 off 56. Rahul Tripathi chipping in as well with 52 off 29. And DK, not Quinton de Kock, but Dinesh Karthik, he scored 22 off 9. Rashid Khan did Rashid Khan things and took 2 for 24. Muhammad Nabi did Muhammad Nabi things and took 2 for 32. And Nadarajan did not so much Nadarajan things, taking 1 for 37, normally a bit cheaper than that. Sunrisers Hyderabad scored 177 for 5. Their top scorer was high. This is Manish Pandey with 61 not out of 44 balls. Johnny Bairstow is having a fun time in India again. He's scoring 55 off 40. And Abdul Samad, 19 off 8 balls. A lot of questions around whether he should have been promoted in the order. Prasid Krishna for KKR took 2 for 35. Paddy Cummins took 1 for 30. And Sakib Al Hassan took 1 for 34. So let's start at the goodies, Rasuki. Nitish Rana, it's monster hitting. Some monster hitting, including a massive 6 to bring up his 50. Could you run us through how he went about that innings?
He started his innings with a four. First ball.
Ooh.
Bhuvi Kumar, not the easiest bowler to face. He gave him a half volley way outside off, making it very easy for him. But it would have really helped him to score a boundary of his first ball to go into the innings. Monstrous batting, as you said, also clean. It wasn't blind slogging. It was clean hitting, and that's something that would give him confidence well as to KKR.
He took the disinfectant from the umpires that they use on the ball, just rubbed it all over his bat, and ensured it was clean hitting. No one was getting COVID in that arena with him hitting the ball that cleanly. It was sterilizing.
Also, for all the listeners, please use hand sanitizers at all points of time.
And masks. And get vaccinated if you can. But as they say during the commentary now as well, during this year's Vivo IPL.
Exactly. Yeah. It was another effort at convincing Vivo.
Well, yeah, Nitish Rana batted beautifully. Someone else batted really beautifully. However, there's question marks about whether it was beneficial or to the detriment of his side, really. And that was high. This is Manish Pandey. He, as I said before, he scored his 61 not out of 44. Striking at, what's that, 120? Is that 120? Something like that. My maths isn't great, but even I know that isn't great striking. Just because those numbers are too close together, and therefore it's not good striking. This opens up that whole can of worms of no one else really scored many runs besides Johnny Bairstow with his 55. So could it really be to the detriment of the side if he's the only reason that it got as close as it looks, at least?
Yeah, I really believe that he was slow, but you would say he was the reason, or his slow batting was the reason if there were other people who were going to do that. If there were other opportunities, they were not. He was the highest scorer of the team, and with the fact that they lost 2 wickets very, very early, he was allowed to play such an innings, because if he took more risks, they could have lost terribly. So at that point of time, it was more important for Manish and Bairstow to build a partnership instead of going ballistic from the start, especially chasing 187. Batting second with the dew in play, it's not a huge total. So I wouldn't blame him, but having scored 60 or 44, we would have expected him to up the ante from then and not just finish at that.
Well, as we know, teams don't just lose. It's always someone's fault. So if it's not Manish Pandey's, whose is it? Could it be the coaching staff or the captain, whoever decides this batting order of the Sunrisers Hyderabad, and people who were deciding Abdul Samad should be batting so low down the order? Who can we put more blame on? Because that was obviously instrumental. Abdul Samad taking Pat Cummins down the ground for 6 off his first ball. That was quite impressive hitting.
It could be, and also in our team combinations that we had in the first episode, we put Abdul Samad higher, and for exactly the same reason, because he is good enough. He has shown that in the previous editions of Vivo IPL, and he wasn't given enough opportunity this time.
True.
And he showed that 19 of 8. If he played 20 balls, he could have potentially scored a 50, and that could have made the difference that SRH was looking for.
True. Well, what Sunrisers Hyderabad really needed was one of their openers to bat through the innings. They needed one of David Warner or Riddiman Saha to really go through the innings and control that run chase and provide a cool head, so that way people don't just start slogging straight off the bat. However, neither of them did it, and I think that's as poignant as I can say it. They both fell on when the score was on 10, Warner going first and then Saha following very soon after, and it puts SRH not only without any leadership up at the top, but really without any chance of winning this game when you're 2 down for 10 in the power play.
Yeah, we have seen that a lot of times in the Vivo IPL, that when the openers of any team score big, and big doesn't have to be a century, big can be a 50 as well. It's all about giving the team a good start in the power play, especially when you're chasing, because then the others can assess the situation and see what the required run rate is and play accordingly. And if you lose 2 wickets in the power play, if you lose 2 wickets in 2 overs, 2.1 overs to be very specific, it's not good getting any better from there. You're always behind the ball. You're always trying to chase the game instead of chasing the score, and you're never in the controlling position from there on. And that's what we saw with Bairstow and Pandey. They were comfortable, but they couldn't really press on the accelerator, because they always knew that if one of them gets out, it's going to be a collapse.
True. Well, someone who was getting people out was Pat Cummins. He ended up with 1 for 30. However, like we said before, those figures were inflated by Abdul Samad. He was bowling really well. He had figures of 1 for 15 after 3 until the Abdul Samad attack tore his figures apart. Not really. 1 for 30 is still a commendable performance.
It is.
Yeah. In the Vivo IPL. And another person who bowled well, although albeit only for 1 over, Harbhajan Singh. Could you tell us the story behind that and why he was picked in this side?
It's very interesting. He opened the bowling and he just bowled 1 over. There are theories. I mean, there are a lot of theories around IPL. A lot of teams play around the statistics games and the numbers games and matchups. And it's believed that Harbhajan Singh has a very, very good matchup against David Warner. And he was only selected in the team to get him out. That was his only role. So you spend 1 player and you gamble for him to get 1 player out.
And it almost worked, one player, didn't it?
Almost worked.
Almost worked.
He induced an edge. He induced a false shot, and Patty Cummins dropped it in the first over itself. However, didn't really cost much because David Warner was out the next over. But I believe, and a lot of other people believe, that Harbhajan Singh was brought into the side for that exact purpose. And going to be interesting to see what they do with other teams. I don't think David Warner plays for all the franchises, so we'll have to wait and see if Harbhajan Singh plays a lot of games for KKR this season.
True.
Especially with Kuldeep Yadav sitting on the bench.
Well, someone who will play a lot of games for KKR this season is Dr. Trey Russ. He was keeping it real this game. He was keeping it 100. His bowling more than his batting relief, to scoring 5 off 5 balls. He's not going to get mentioned in this esteemed podcast for that production. But he will for his bowling. He bowled well. He managed to defend that very easy target of 22 off the last over. It was an easy target to defend. 22 needed. However, he still had to do it, and he bowled really tight and took a wicket in the 18th over that really made sure KKR weren't going to let this game slip from their grasp to hide this as Manish Pandey. Yeah.
Yeah, he just went for 6 or 7 runs, picking up a wicket, and
Mm.
just putting that break on the
Yeah.
innings.
Yeah. And that's why we think it was not as not as close as the scoreline may suggest. They always felt
Exactly.
like they were two big overs away from being in the game seriously, if you know
Yeah,
what I mean.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we have to rate this game. And I have a feeling this is may rate the worst that we've had so far.
It could well be. It could
Yeah.
well be. Yeah.
The people who
He,
scored big scores, well, besides Nitish Rana, sorry, people on the Sunrisers Hyderabad. Half this game was just a slow grind to an eventual stop. I feel with some big shots by Pandey and Bairstow, but it was tough viewing for me. I'm not sure why, but yeah.
it felt like we are watching CSK bat,
Mm,
and the last year CSK, we still have to wait and see how they gone about this season
mm,
in the terms of their approach. But in terms of the game, it wasn't really one-sided,
yeah.
but it really didn't provide a lot of entertainment
Mm,
that we look forward to in the Vivo IPL.
yeah.
So in terms of rating the game, it has to be the worst so far.
Yeah, but it wasn't that much worse than CSK versus DC. I'd be happy giving it a 3.4.
I agree with that.
And I feel like that wouldn't break any hearts. And as we all know, that is the number one rule of this year's Vivo IPL.
Number one rule.
But we will have to break some hearts in a second. But first, we have to tell who the biggest winners of this game were. I think they should be Nitish Rana, Prasid Krishna, and Tripathi. Those are my three.
All three from KKR, and
All
they
three
had a
from
good day
KKR.
indeed.
They did have a good day.
I agree absolutely.
Manish Pandey could have been a sneaky mention in, but he would have had to have struck quite a bit quicker, I think, to get a mention over Rana or Tripathi. You know,
If he won the game for SRH, then definitely
Of
he would have
course.
been up there.
of course, but then that would be a different game with probably a rating in the fours if we're feeling
Yeah.
generous.
True.
Yeah. Um, who do you think the biggest losers of this game
So
were?
you leave me up to breaking hearts.
Yes, it's called delegation.
I have David Warner.
Mm-hmm. Agree.
I have his opening partner Saha,
Agree.
and I have Varun Chakravarti.
Very harsh. Why?
Why? Because he was selected for the Indian team twice,
Mm-hmm.
and he couldn't make it. He couldn't get his game because of multiple reasons.
Mm.
Not because of his performances, but because of his injuries or fitness test or whatever. But
Mm.
there's a lot of hype going around his bowling. There's a lot of hype going around his spin being mysterious.
Mm.
And we all know how these mystery spinners go about in a couple of years. I personally don't think there's a lot of mystery around his bowling, and I think it's a bit overhyped.
Mm.
And I think this is a very good. IPL is always a good testing ground, but I think for Varun Chakravarti is the make or break
True.
moment in his career, and he didn't really have a good game. And he went for 4 overs here. For 4 overs, he went for 36.
Mhm.
Did not picking up any wickets, and being a mystery spinner, I mean, we have seen what Rashid Khan does.
Yeah.
Not being a mystery spinner, everyone knows he's a leggy, and he still does Rashid Khan things.
Yeah.
And if there are similar expectations from Varun Chakravarti, then he has to perform better.
I would
We
just
also have, sorry,
no. Go ahead.
we also have a notable inclusion here. Last time you had 4 losers. This time it's my turn to have 4 losers. We could have Owen Morgan as well.
I would agree. He came in an
he's
easy situation that he came in. Experienced head. It was a chance for him to just pile on those runs. But
exactly.
he threw it away. So, what can you do? Anyway, that's all the time we have for today here at the third innings. Make sure you give us a follow on the socials in the description and stay tuned for our recap of the Rajasthan Royals versus Kings Punjab. Not an 11, just Kings Punjab game tomorrow, and our new show, which comes out at the end of every week. My name has been Maxwell Charlesworth, and alongside me, as always, has been my co-host and good friend, Prasuk Jain. It's been a pleasure having your company, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you.